Century Fox liked his looks. Or maybe it was the way he answered those tough questions.
Promise me something that nobody's ever promised me before.
I promise to fall in love with you if you pick me, for sure.
Okay.
Good try, but he lost. He was at USC at that time, a bench warmer on the basketball team heading for a career in business. He made his acting debut while still in college in this Air Force training film.
Well, I don't want to get the guy in any trouble, sir, but I think something's bugging him. It happened a few days ago.
But Selleck never really found his niche until 1980, when he emerged from the Pacific in this, the first scene of the first episode of the mega hit Magnum P.I. Tom played an offbeat private detective with a boyish sense of humor.
Don't look at the dogs, work the lock. Work the lock, work the lock. Don't look at the dogs. You looked at the dogs.
Sometimes everything goes exactly as planned.
While shooting Magnum, Selleck made several films, none of which seemed to point to a grand future in the movies. Then Magnum's ratings began to slip, and one critic called Tom a throwback to the pet rock era, the implication being that Tom's popularity was over. But when the final episode aired, the audience and the network were begging for more. But Tom had taken creative control, turned the show around in its last 2 years, and walked out a winner. But there was still that question about making it in the movies, and Tom answered with one of the most successful films of 1988, Three Men and a Baby.
And the cut above his right eye, now much more bloody, countered with a barrage of vicious body blows. What are you reading her? It doesn't matter what I read. It's the tone you use. She doesn't understand the words anyway. Now, where were we?
Okay.
And next month, Tom stars with Paulina Poroskova in the suspense comedy Her Alibi.
What's she like? Good, huh?
I first spoke with Tom 8 years ago at his home in Hawaii. I remember how concerned he was then that his newfound success would somehow change him. Today, Tom's view is a little different. The skyline of Century City in Los Angeles has, for the most part, replaced the beaches of Hawaii. Here in a Beverly Hills high-rise, Tom keeps a one-bedroom apartment, really more of a bachelor's pad, reflecting the life he had before he met this woman, Jilly Mack.
Thomas Magnum.
Charmed.
Higgins has really been looking forward to your visit.
Yeah, to have a bleeding pet project. He wants to work me over so I'm presentable to Timmy's posh bunch.
She is, as you can hear,
I should let
British.
him do it.
Tom met her while she was appearing in the London production of the musical Cats. They were married in August of 1987. And since then, Jilly has appeared with him in Magnum, as well as on her own in TV shows such as Hooperman.
Let's make this easier on both of us, Nick. Let's say goodbye, and let's mean it.
Tom and Jilly say that their plans for a family will eventually drive them out of this small apartment. It's a warm and masculine place, decorated like an English lord's manor, with a little western thrown in.
It's probably partly who I want to be in my next life, and then partly me. You know, I hated the idea of living in a condo, so I wanted a place that I could walk in and forget that I was in a high-rise building.
When you interview someone for the second time, it can be tough, because all the how did you make it questions are old news. Tom wanted to put me at ease and decided his cartoon drinking glasses would liven things up. They did. There was a perception after Three Men and a Baby by some critics.
Yeah.
That suddenly you were an actor.
Thank you.
No, but do you know what I mean? Oh,
yeah.
My goodness. Are you a better actor now than you were in Magnum?
I hope so. I had this great anxiety when I came into Three Men and a Baby because I have 11 nieces and nephews, and every one of them I've terrified when they were babies. I hope it's the mustache. I don't know. But I made them all cry. So I wasn't sure how the babies would take to me.
Because they were twins, we should explain to people.
And so they were twins because we had Michelle and Lisa, and identical twins. But I went right from Magnum into Three Men. So I didn't have 3 months where I could hang out in maternity wards and, you know, smell diapers and put baby powder on my body. So I was weighing the anxiety with, well, I'm completely unprepared. And they gave me all these baby books, and I suddenly realized I don't want to see any of that, because that's not what this movie's about. So I had to force myself to stay away from the babies.
Yeah, this movie is about a guy who never took care of a baby.
So, but I got to know them as my character did, and that ended up being a big help, and they actually liked me.
There's that wonderful scene where you're reading, what was it from, Sports Illustrated?
Sports Illustrated,
And the baby is looking at you and falls asleep adoringly. You can't fake that.
No, you can't. You can't fake anything.
The baby
as a
obviously dug you.
Yeah, I think that was Michelle.
Did you like the babies?
I loved the babies. I was very, very fond of them. This had nothing to do with Jilly and my baby, which everybody seems to think there's some correlation in my life.
When we talked to you in Magnum, you really had no time at all. We talked about the possibility
We did that on
of
a
meeting
Sunday,
someone.
I think.
Yeah, and you said, I never have time to date. I never have time to meet anybody. Here we are
dated.
again.
I
A little,
dated
but I
a
mean,
lot,
you know.
quietly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you're married.
I know.
You kept your marriage secret for 30 days.
I was very proud of that.
Under an assumed name. How did you ever get away with that?
I can't remember my name now. We drove an hour up to Incline Village in Tahoe, and got there, and I was getting dressed, and Jilly was in the other room, and asked them, please, the people who married us, to please, if they wouldn't mind, would they keep it quiet? And they said yes, and they did, which I really admired. And my brother said, let me have the license. I said, what? I said, I don't have the license. I said, I think Jilly has the license. Now, she's in another room, a little room with kind of pocket doors, slid closed, with my mom. So somebody went in there to ask for the license, because I didn't want to see her. And you met Jilly.
Yes.
She has a lot of energy.
Yes, a little tiny thing. Though.
Yeah, but through the walls, I started hearing this very high-pitched kind of, what? No, I don't know. He did. And it went on for about 10 minutes. And I knew we didn't have a license. And we ended up, the Reverend there ended up calling a judge he knew at the courthouse who called the courthouse and verified we had a license. And then he drove an hour down to Reno to pick up the license for us so we could have dinner, and drove all the way back.
You're sure you're married?
I know I'm married now. I have the license.
You better be married now, because not only are you wearing the ring, but by the time this interview is aired, we are talking a little bit in advance.
Yes.
You probably will be a father.
I hope so. I don't know what expected fathers can do but worry, so.
What are you worried about?
Well, I think you worry about the health of the baby.
Yeah.
I worry about Jilly, and that's enough.
When you met Jilly, she was in Cats in London. Okay. Now, I have seen Cats, and they're all made up. I mean, they're cats.
I know.
Will you tell me how, sitting there, you looked and said, that one, that's the one I want to meet?
Well,
you went to see the show.
I went to see the show, and I went backstage to see Brian Blessed, who was playing Old Deuteronomy in London, this is. And I had noticed a couple cats, actually, but one in particular, and I didn't know who they were. And I bumped into Jilly in the hallway, and she was still in her cat's makeup. She just said, excuse me, and went on. And I asked him, but Brian never fixed me up. He never even introduced us. I think Brian, as Old Deuteronomy, was kind of possessive about his cats. And because he's very fatherly.
Yeah, he's a fatherly cat.
Yeah, so
head cat.
I ended up, I went back to the show a couple times,
How
and
many
I just
times,
watched this
How
person.
many times did you go to see her?
8.
8
and a
times
half.
you saw Cats?
After about the 3rd time, I'd gone out to Wales at a friend of mine's house, Doug Plowden, who was my best friend from like 7th grade on. And the only phone Doug has in this farmhouse was up in his bedroom, so he came up there with his wife, Tessa, and sat in the room. And well, I called up, and I got a hold of and asked for Jilly Mack, and I said, and she'd never seen my work, truly, which I didn't know, and introduced myself, and I'm hemming and hawing, and Doug's laughing at me and then saying, get to it, and finally, I had talked to her for about 10 minutes and just said, you know, I'm a friend of Brian Blessed's, and I don't... And she finally said, would you like to take me out for a cocktail? Because I have to go on stage. And I said, yeah. So she helped out a little bit. I've never been very good at that.
Was it love at first sight when she took off the cat makeup?
Well, I think that happens. I think it was infatuation at first sight. I think love at first sight happens over a period of time when you get to know somebody. I was pretty sure of who she was, actually. I mean, she looked awfully good in a leotard. But apart from that, she had this kind of spirit and humor and feistiness that, through all the little cat freckles and whiskers and everything, was unmistakable. And she was very much like that. And ate more food than I did. I was always used to taking girls out that I could eat half their food. And Jilly was the first one who ate some of mine.
That's love.
Yeah, it is, because I don't like to share food. I don't know why, but in the show, I like my own popcorn, but Jilly won't have any of that, so we usually eat out of the same popcorn.
These serious marital problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to be an active father? That is, will you change diapers, help with the feeding at 5 o'clock? I mean, have you thought about this and what kind of a role you want for yourself?
Yeah. I don't want to be a show business father in the sense that I'm, you know, I have everybody else to deal with defecation and urine, and I only deal with the holding and the pleasant moments. I don't think that's either fair or good for you. I want to spend as much time as I can, and one thing, 8 years of Magnum and the work I've done, which has been probably one of the nicest things that's ever happened to me, but at the same time it's made me realize how important personal relationships are, family relationships are, because I've put an awful lot of those on hold. So I'm just not going to let acting get in the way of that. And if I'd rather stop acting.
Then what?
Then be the kind of father I don't want to be, which is occasional.
I read that a year ago you said you didn't want, I guess it was about a year ago, you said you really didn't want to have a baby. The next thing I heard, you wanted.
I may have been lying, because maybe Jilly was pregnant.
I see.
There's certain, I think I'm very truthful with the press, and except in areas where I don't think I can let them in, and then I lie, and I will continue to do so.
Tom, when we talked this last time, you had a marriage that broke up.
Yeah.
And that was a tough period. You were away from your son. Magnum was just beginning. All kinds of new things were happening. Now, new wife, baby, success. Good life. Anything missing?
No.
That's not.
I think you asked, in your retrospective show, I think you asked me something about what was the best time of my life, what was the worst time. And I said, now and now. And I would have to say that again.
Well, I understand the best. What would be the worst?
Now.
Why?
Well, because I like to live in the present, and my problems, whatever they happen to be at the present time, are just as real. I'm too goal-oriented, so I try and catch myself and live as much as I can in the present. I'm not very good at that in the goal area yet, but I'd like to get better.
And what's the goal?
Work-wise, that'll come or go, but I think that's a lot better. If you would ask me last year or the year before what my goals are, I would have talked to you about doing some theater on Broadway or doing that, and that disturbed me, that my life was that much out of balance.
So now when I say, how are you, and what's the goal?
I'm fine, and Jilly's great, and I think we're going to have a nice, happy, healthy baby.
On December 16th, Julie gave birth to a happy, healthy, 8-pound, 7-ounce baby girl. They named her Hannah Margaret.